Top of the morning to you. Welcome to another episode on how to fly a helicopter on Vatsim and ATC phraseology. Today we will take a look at clearances and our initial call to whatever station is online. Before we dive in, just a quick explanation. You'll rarely find your airport of choice being fully covered. That means that all stations are manned at the same time. On the big and busy airports, of course, you might get lucky, especially if there's any event going on. You can check that on the Vatsim page under Events. However, more often than not, you will find that your airport is not controlled. To find out what controllers are online at a given time, I'd recommend that you check out the Vatsim map page. You can find it under map.vatsim.net. There are other pages out there, however, that's the one that I frequently use. You can see which airports or airspaces are controlled, and it also tracks your flight while you're on the Vatsim network. Full ATC coverage at a bigger airport might look like this. You may have a frequency for clearance delivery, which gives out clearances for IFR as well as VFR flight. Depending on the airport that you're at, you might also be required to request engine startup. Information on that can be found in your aerodrome's charts. At a lot of airports, especially the smaller ones, however, VFR aircraft are expected to start their engines at their own discretion. In that case, you would get in contact with a controller once you're ready to taxi. The next higher up station would be ground control. Ground control is responsible for the movement areas of an airport, so aprons and taxiways. They hand out taxi instructions as well as pushback clearances, and they make sure that all the aircrafts at an airport get to and from the runway in a safe and efficient manner. Ground control frequencies are often set around 1 to 1 MHz. So if you get a handoff like this, contact ground 0.75. That simply means that you need to set your radio to 1 to 1.75. The next station would be tower control, who's responsible for takeoffs and landings on all runways. Unless it's a big airport, then you might have more than one tower controller, such as at Charles de Gaulle in Paris, France, where there is a north and a south tower. Same thing in Munich, Germany. In the real world, at bigger airports, you might also have a helicopter-specific frequency where there's a controller that handles all the helicopter traffic exclusively. However, on the network, I haven't seen something like this. Tower will also be responsible for any runway crossings as well as approach and departure procedures within the CTR, the control zone. If you're a VFR helicopter, Tower will also issue your VFR departure clearance. The next higher up frequency would be departure or approach, which, as the name suggests, handle aircraft that are departing or approaching airports. You would contact them if you are told to do so or if you're flying within their airspace. However, if you simply exit a CTR into Class Echo airspace, which is a controlled airspace but does not require VFR pilots to establish radio contact with air traffic control, you might not have to contact departure at all. Same goes for the center frequencies, which handle air traffic between airports and in the higher up altitudes. So to sum it up, on Vatsim you would always contact the lowest station that is currently online. If there's a clearance delivery frequency, you would first contact them. If they're offline, you would go to ground control. If there's no ground control, you would go to tower, and so on. For us helicopter pilots, it might sometimes be even simpler. At a lot of airports, there are helicopter-specific departure and approach procedures that keep you well clear of the fixed-wing traffic and also do not require you to taxi. That means once you're ready to go, you can skip clearance delivery or ground frequencies and contact tower straight away. On Vatsim, a lot of times there will be an approach controller or a center controller that handles quite a few airports in his area at the same time. So if you are unsure whether or not the airport that you want to take off from is currently controlled, just go ahead and ask him. So let's talk about clearances. What is a clearance? Radio telephony calls or communications between pilots and ground personnel will usually comprise one or more of the following elements in any message transmitted. Clearances are transmissions made by air traffic control that require strict compliance and are to be read back verbatim. For instance, takeoff clearance, landing clearance, IFR and VFR departure clearances, and clearance to cross a runway while taxiing. Instructions are also to be followed and read back, however only if it is possible, practical and safe to do so. In those rare cases where you cannot follow an instruction, simply say unable. Finally, ATC might give you information. That can be any information that they feel might assist you in the safe conduct of your flight, and you do not have to read them back. For instance, wind 150 at 4 knots. Don't read that back. When will I need a VFR clearance? We will need clearance to depart from a Class Charlie or Class Bravo airport, and if I want to fly within or transit a Class Bravo airspace. I need clearances for takeoff and landing, for the crossing of runways, and of course for my departure from or my arrival to a control zone. I will also need clearance for any movement of my aircraft within the movement areas of an airport, which is controlled by ground control. While it is enough to establish a two-way radio communication with ATC if I want to enter a Class Charlie airspace, we will need a specific clearance to enter the Class Bravo. That means that I'm not allowed to enter a Class Bravo airspace, or fly within one for that matter, if I don't hear these exact words. Cleared into or cleared out of the Class Bravo. The structure of controlled airspace might differ in the country that you live in. For instance, in my home country of Germany, we do not have any Class Bravo airspace. We have Class Charlie and Class Delta. We will not need a VFR clearance at Class Delta airports and of course at uncontrolled airfields. At the latter, we will self-announce our intentions on the CTAF frequency or in Vatsim on Unicom 122.8. Before we get into contact with ATC, we will listen to the latest weather information. At smaller airports, you might get that information from an AWOS. If it is there, it's an automated airport weather station. The bigger airports usually have ATIS, Automatic Terminal Information Service. ATIS broadcasts pre-compiled messages containing essential information for airports, such as current weather information as well as expected changes of the weather conditions, active runways, the local altimeter setting or QNH, information on cloud bases and visibility, surface winds and surface conditions of runways, temperatures and dew point, and they might include other important information such as the transition level, the departure frequency, or other NOTAMs, notice to airmen, which include information about the closing of taxiways or runways and the likes. The ATIS information is updated regularly, and it can be identified by a letter of the NATO alphabet at the beginning and at the end of each transmission. Prior to departure or approach, we will listen in on the current ATIS of the aerodrome. You might come across the term NOSIG, that is short for no significant weather change expected within the next 2 hours. If a significant weather change can be expected, you might hear the term becoming followed by a forecast. Now, how do I ask for VFR clearance? It's easy. We will make our initial call to whatever station is active at the moment containing the following information. Who we are, for instance, Helicopter November 951 Whiskey Mike. What we are, our aircraft type, Schweizer S300. Where we are, for instance, at the GAT, short for General Aviation Terminal, which is sometimes simply called the ramp. The letter of the weather information or ATIS information that we just listened to. And most importantly, our intentions and what kind of clearance we request, so VFR or IFR. So let's look at a few examples. Helicopter November 951 Whiskey Mike Schweizer 300 at the FBO with Bravo requests VFR departure southeast. ATC might give us the following clearance. November Whiskey Mike southeast departure approved, maintain VFR at or below 2500, report ready for liftoff. As you can see, VFR clearances are plain and simple, but notice that we did get an altitude restriction. We are not allowed to fly above 2500 feet. We will then read back that clearance. It's always a good idea to jot things down so you don't forget anything. At some airports, it might be required for you to advise ATC how many people are on board your aircraft. If you want to fly a specific published departure route, you can ask for that in your initial call as well. Next example. Van Nuys Tower, Helicopter November 951 Whiskey Mike, Schweizer 300 West Ramp with Kilo ready for departure via Bull Creek and Ventura, VFR to Kilo Charlie Mike Alpha. Bull Creek is a transition that runs parallel to runway 16 and then meets the Ventura Freeway, which is the heli lane that we're going to follow westbound. Also notice how I didn't say my direction of flight, simply assuming that the ATC controller will know that Camarillo Airport is of course west of Van Nuys. Tower answers. Helicopter November 9051 Whiskey Mike, Van Nuys Tower. Approved as requested. Departure from the ramp will be at your own risk. Report airborne and squawk 1205. Notice that we did not get an altitude restriction. Of course, when flying westbound from Van Nuys Airport, at least for a couple of miles, the altitude restriction would be the overlying class Charlie of Burbank International, which starts at 3,000 feet. We did get a specific transponder code 1205 that we need to dial in, and we will report liftoff. For an example, for a transition of a Class Bravo airspace, feel free to check out my video on the New York Special VFR. It's right there on my channel. Let's move on to IFR clearances. The initial call will be pretty much the same, except that I will ask for an IFR clearance. In that case, I cannot contact tower straight away, as I sometimes can when I'm flying VFR, because naturally the tower controller does not have the time to hand out IFR clearances, so that's what the clearance delivery frequency is for. Nuremberg delivery helicopter Delta Hotel Oscar Mike India, Bell 412 at Pad 3, we have information Oscar IFR to Frankfurt. The IFR clearance could sound something like this. Helicopter Delta Hotel Oscar Mike India, Nuremberg delivery, guten Abend. You are cleared to Frankfurt via the Suka 2 kilo departure. Flight planned route, climb flight level 070 and squawk 1000. You can memorize the elements of an IFR clearance by using the mnemonic device CRAFT. The C stands for the clearance limit. When ATC said, "You are cleared to Frankfurt," he let us know that our clearance limit is our destination airport, Echo Delta Delta Foxtrot. R stands for route. ATC told us to fly the Suka 2 kilo departure, which is the standard and exclusive departure route for aircraft that fly to Frankfurt. He also said flight planned route, which simply means that we are supposed to follow our pre-filed flight plan once we reach the waypoint Sukat, and there are no amendments to our flight plan by the controller. A stands for altitude or initial altitude should ATC decide to give you altitude restrictions for a period of time. We, in our example, were cleared to flight level 070 or 7,000 feet. F stands for frequency. This might be the departure frequency that you are supposed to contact once you're airborne. In our case, the departure frequency to be contacted was mentioned in the ATIS broadcast, so I already know which one it is. Finally enough, the T stands for our transponder code. Sometimes you may hear climb via SID. That simply means that you should adhere to the standard published altitude profile of the departure procedure that you got assigned. Takeoff and landing clearances. You will always need to be cleared to take off from or land at a runway. So if you are positioned at the holding point of a runway or holding short of a runway, or you are ready for liftoff from your present position, you would report to tower that you are ready for departure. You should never say ready for takeoff. It is common practice that the word takeoff is exclusively issued by the tower controller to avoid any misunderstandings. So the only time that you would use the word takeoff would be in your read bag once you get your takeoff clearance. This method has been adopted in consequence of the most horrific accident in aviation history when two Boeing 747s collided on the runway of Tenerife South Airport in 1977. Your takeoff clearance will consist of cleared for takeoff and then the runway or the position that you are cleared to take off from. Of course, we will have to read back this clearance verbatim. When on approach, you would not report ready to land or ready for arrival or something like this. Tower simply hands out the landing clearance whenever they see it fit. It might be issued to you on your base or your final leg, or if you're flying IFR once you're established on the ILS. The landing clearance will consist of cleared to land and then the runway or the position that you are cleared to land on. Sometimes you will hear expect late landing clearance. This might be due to an aircraft still being on the runway, but the tower controller expects them to clear the runway in time for you to land. However, always expect to go around. This is quite a normal thing to happen, and if it happens to you, you are expected to follow the published go-around procedure or climb back to traffic pattern altitude and enter the traffic pattern anew. Let's say you are a small VFR aircraft or helicopter. You do not need the whole length of the runway, but your parking spot is pretty much down at the end of the runway. You can then ask for a long landing, which means that you would touch down your aircraft further down the runway to avoid prolonged taxiing. When on approach, tower might require you to fly a holding pattern for a short period of time, so you might hear the following terms: fly right orbit or fly left orbit, which means that you have to circle to the right or to the left. Hold north or hold south, hold east or hold west of runway. Enter a standard holding pattern as instructed. They might also add fly left turns or fly right turns. VFR air traffic is usually controlled by the use of traffic patterns or visual reporting points or VFR routes. So you might hear your tower controller say one of these things: enter, exit, leave, CTR or control zone via. Report n number of miles to the airfield. Report airfield in sight. Enter, traffic pattern leg of runway. Report leg of runway. Stay clear of the extended runway center line. Imagine a straight line extending from the runway center line and don't cross that area. So to conclude our latest episode on clearances, we will take a look at an example that I've been flying one of these days with an EC-35.
Beacon information whiskey.
So let's get to our example. We're sitting on the helipad 1 at Munich International Airport, Echo Delta Delta Mike, and we are just listening in on the ATIS information whiskey. After that, we're going to change frequencies to Munich delivery and ask for a southeast VFR departure. We're flying to Innsbruck in Austria today. Departing the airport to the southeast, I will expect to follow the VFR route Hotel, which consists of 2 visual reporting points, Hotel 2 and Hotel 1, before leaving the control zone and continuing on southeast bound. On my initial call, I will state my call sign, my aircraft type, my present position and my intentions. And because it is required at Munich International Airport, I will also ask for permission to start up. München delivery, Servus, Helicopter Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot. You will hear Servus and Hallo, which are simple greetings in German.
Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot, München delivery, hello.
Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot EC-35 Helipad 1 with Whiskey VFR departure southeast, request startup.
Delta Lima Foxtrot, Roger, stand by.
He told us to stand by, so he will get back to us. We have to wait. Also notice that he shortened our call sign from Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot to Delta Lima Foxtrot, and we should use that shortened call sign as well. As a VFR aircraft, I don't expect to get my clearance from delivery. I will get my clearance from Tower because Tower in the end is responsible for getting VFR aircraft in and out of his CTR.
Delta Lima Foxtrot, startup approved, contact apron 121.775, bye-bye.
Startup approved and 121.775 Delta Lima Foxtrot. Alright, we have permission to start the engines, and after that we will contact the ground control or apron for taxi instructions. Now it's time to contact apron. I will state my call sign, of course, and I will repeat my intentions here. Small mistake on my part, I should have used my full call sign again on my initial call to another station. München apron, Servus, Helicopter Delta Lima Foxtrot, Helipad 1 ready to taxi southeast departure VFR.
Helicopter Delta Lima Fox, hello. Would you like to depart from present position or would you like to air taxi and then depart from Sierra intersection Bravo 1 to West?
We can depart from present position, Delta Lima Foxtrot.
Delta Lima Foxtrot, Roger, stand by.
An intersection departure is when an aircraft does not use the full length of the runway and rather enters the runway at a specific intersection with a taxiway. As a helicopter, we wouldn't have used the runway in this case at all. We would have departed from the intersection of taxiways Sierra and Bravo 1 to West.
Lima Foxtrot, Tower already knows about the intention, so contact 120.5, ciao.
120.5, ciao Delta Lima Foxtrot. So we were given the choice here, depart from present position or air taxi to a specific helicopter departure and approach point on the taxiways. Of course, I gladly accepted taking off from the present position, seeing as it is about 3 kilometers to that intersection that he offered us. The helicopter area at Munich International is reserved for police helicopters, I believe, so if you were to fly into Munich as a GA pilot at all, you probably would have to park your helicopter at the GA apron. München Tower, Servus, Helicopter Delta Hotel Alpha Lima, Foxtrot ready for departure, Helipad 1 Southeast departure, VFR. As we know from ground control, Tower already knows, so this was unnecessary information.
Delta Hotel Alpha Lima, Foxtrot München Tower, hello, wind 280 degrees, 5 knots, cleared for takeoff, present position, leave control zone via hotel.
That's our clearance. Cleared for takeoff, present position, leave control zone via hotel, Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot, which we have to read back.
Lufthansa 3 Papa Whiskey, line up runway.
Alright, I'm picking up the aircraft into the air. We have to be a little bit careful due to the enormously large lampposts to our right.
2303, contact ground 121.825, bye-bye. 121.
Now we were cleared via the VFR departure route Hotel, which means that we have to follow two visual reporting points. The first being Hotel 2, just a few miles south of the runway, and the second, Hotel 1, just short of the end of the CTR. Right now there's an airliner lined up on runway 26 left waiting for his takeoff clearance.
Lufthansa 3 Papa Whiskey, wind 280 degrees, 5 knots. Stand by.
Waiting for us to cross the runway. Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot, clear of the runway.
Thanks, Lufthansa 3 Papa Whiskey, wind 280 degrees, 5 knots, runway 26 left, cleared for takeoff. Copy that, cleared for takeoff, Lufthansa 3 Papa Whiskey.
Alright, now I'm heading directly towards visual reporting point Hotel 2, which you can see on the GPS. Once I'm there, I am required to report to tower and state my altitude. Delta Hotel Alpha Lima Foxtrot, Hotel 2, 2,700 feet.
Kilometer 8205, wind 280 degrees, 5 knots, runway 26 left, clear to land.
6 left, for land,
Delta Lima Foxtrot, roger.
Alright, that's it for today. I will have to do the same thing once I reach Hotel 1, at which point Tower will clear me out of his CTR by saying frequency change approved. So that means I'm allowed to change my frequency. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something, and see you around next time. Bye bye.